You were never meant to live like everyone else, and deep down, you've always known it. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt something was off before anyone spoke a single word? Have you ever sensed someone's true intentions long before the truth came out? People called you too sensitive, too quiet, or even crazy. But time after time, life proved that your instincts were right. Chosen one, that is not an accident. That is one of the gifts God has placed inside you. Your discernment is unsettling people because it exposes what they hoped would remain hidden. They don't understand why they can't fool you, why their fake smiles don't work on you, or why their carefully crafted masks seem to fall apart in your presence. They look at you and think, "Bro, what the hell? How did they know?" They begin questioning themselves because your sixth sense keeps revealing what they desperately wanted to conceal. This isn't magic. This isn't luck. This is spiritual awareness, sharpened by every battle you've survived and every lesson God allowed you to experience. Every betrayal made you wiser. Every disappointment trained your spirit. Every lonely season taught you to hear God's whisper more clearly than the noise of the world. That's why your presence alone makes people uncomfortable. You don't even have to accuse anyone. You don't have to expose them publicly. Simply seeing through the illusion is enough to make the guilty nervous. Have you noticed how some people start explaining themselves without you asking a single question? Have you seen how they suddenly become defensive around you for no reason? That's because conviction speaks louder than conversation. When darkness encounters light, it reacts. It always does.
Many of you have spent years doubting yourselves because society taught you to ignore your intuition. Every time you felt something wasn't right, someone convinced you that you were overthinking. Every time your spirit warned you, someone told you to relax. But look back over your life. How many times did that feeling save you? How many relationships did you avoid because something inside you whispered, "Don't trust this person"? How many situations collapsed after you quietly walked away? You weren't being paranoid. God was protecting you. Your spirit was picking up signals that your natural eyes couldn't yet see. That's why the enemy becomes frustrated with chosen people. Deception loses its power when discernment is present. Manipulators depend on confusion, but your clarity destroys confusion before it can take root. They start wondering if someone warned you. They assume you heard gossip. They think someone exposed their plans. Little do they know that heaven has a way of revealing what darkness tries to hide. Your connection with God is becoming stronger, and because of that, your discernment is becoming sharper than ever before. Don't apologize for seeing what others refuse to see. Don't shrink your gift just to make people comfortable. Your peace is more valuable than their approval. The people who truly belong in your life will never fear your discernment because they have nothing to hide. Honest hearts don't panic around honest souls. Here's something that will surprise you. The people who criticize your intuition often end up seeking your advice later. Isn't that amazing? They laugh at your caution until their own decisions fall apart. They mock your wisdom until they realize you avoided the very trap they walked into. Suddenly they want to know how you knew. Suddenly they ask for guidance. Suddenly they respect what they once rejected. Chosen one, don't let that inflate your ego. Stay humble, because this gift is not about proving you're smarter than anyone else. It's about protecting the purpose God has placed on your life. Discernment isn't meant to create pride. It's meant to create peace. God didn't give you insight so you could judge people. He gave it so you could avoid unnecessary pain and remain focused on your calling. Remember, even Jesus knew the hearts of people, yet he still chose love over arrogance. Let your wisdom be wrapped in humility. Let your confidence be rooted in faith. The strongest people don't need to announce what they know. They simply move differently. They observe more than they speak. They pray more than they argue. They trust God's timing more than human explanations. That's why your silence often speaks louder than another person's loudest defense. People become nervous when they realize they can't manipulate someone who listens to God's voice instead of public opinion. So if you've been wondering why certain people suddenly distance themselves from you, don't chase them. If you've noticed fake friends becoming uncomfortable around you, don't force the connection. If people seem strangely nervous whenever you're around, understand that your light is revealing what words never could. Keep your heart pure. Keep your spirit connected to God. Continue praying for wisdom instead of revenge. Continue seeking truth instead of popularity. The world celebrates appearances, but heaven celebrates discernment. You are not called to fit into places that require you to ignore your spirit. You are called to walk boldly in the direction God reveals, even when nobody else understands. Your sixth sense is not a curse. It is a confirmation that God is leading you beyond the visible. Keep trusting those quiet moments when your heart senses what your eyes cannot explain. Keep believing that every warning has a purpose and every delay carries protection. Some doors closed because God saw what you couldn't. Some relationships ended because He heard conversations you never did. Some opportunities disappeared because they were distractions disguised as blessings. Today, stop questioning the gift that has protected you countless times. Instead, thank God for refining your spirit until truth became louder than deception. Chosen one, your journey has never been ordinary, and it never will be. The same discernment that confuses your enemies will continue guiding your destiny. Stay faithful, stay watchful, stay humble. Because while others are busy wondering, "Bro, what the hell? How do they always know?" you'll already be walking into the next season God prepared for you long before anyone else could even see it. Have you ever had a moment when something inside you whispered, "Don't do it," even though everything around you looked completely normal? Have you ever met someone who smiled at you, spoke kind words, and yet your spirit felt restless? You couldn't explain it. You had no evidence. You had no proof. But deep within your heart, something kept telling you that not everything was as it seemed. Chosen one, if you've experienced this, don't ignore it anymore. What you're feeling is not random. It is not fear controlling your mind, and it is certainly not coincidence. It is one of the ways God protects those He has called. The world calls it intuition. Some call it instinct. But for those who walk closely with God, it is spiritual discernment, a gift that grows stronger every time you trust His voice over the noise of the world. Many people think God's protection only appears in dramatic miracles. They imagine angels physically blocking disasters or impossible events changing in an instant. But some of God's greatest miracles happen quietly. Sometimes His protection comes as an uncomfortable feeling you cannot explain. Sometimes it comes through a lack of peace that refuses to leave your heart. Sometimes it comes through a delay that frustrates you today but saves you tomorrow. You may think you're missing an opportunity, but God is actually keeping you from a trap. You may think someone rejected you, when in reality heaven removed someone who would have damaged your purpose. God's protection doesn't always look like an open door. Sometimes it looks like a closed one, and your spirit knows it before your mind understands it. Think about your own journey. How many times have you ignored that inner warning, only to regret it later? Maybe you entered a friendship that felt wrong from the beginning. Maybe you trusted someone, even though your spirit kept telling you to be careful. Maybe you accepted an opportunity that looked perfect on paper, but deep inside, something felt heavy. Later, the truth came out. The betrayal happened. The lies were exposed. The disappointment arrived. Then you looked back and realized that God had already tried to warn you. The signs were there. The peace was missing. But because logic was louder than faith, you convinced yourself to ignore what heaven was trying to reveal. Now think about the opposite. Remember those moments when you actually listened? Remember when everyone else told you to go one direction, but something inside you said, "Wait." It didn't make sense at the time. People questioned your decision. Some even laughed at you for walking away. Yet weeks later, months later, or even years later, you discovered exactly why God stopped you. Maybe that business deal collapsed. Maybe that relationship turned toxic. Maybe that environment became destructive. Suddenly, what once felt like a disappointment became undeniable proof of divine protection. You realized that God wasn't punishing you, He was preserving you. Chosen one, your discernment wasn't created overnight. It was built through every battle you survived. Every betrayal sharpened your awareness. Every heartbreak taught you to recognize patterns. Every season of loneliness trained you to hear God's whisper more clearly. While other people were depending only on appearances, God was teaching you to pay attention to what cannot be seen. That is why your spiritual sensitivity is different now. You notice small changes in people's behavior. You recognize when words and actions don't match. You can feel when an atmosphere shifts, even if everyone else acts like everything is normal. This isn't because you're suspicious. It's because God has trained your spirit to recognize truth beneath the surface. People who don't understand this gift often try to convince you that you're overthinking. They'll tell you that you're imagining things. They'll encourage you to ignore your instincts because they believe everything should be explained through logic alone. But not everything God reveals comes through logic. Faith has always required sensitivity to what natural eyes cannot yet see. Noah built an ark before rain existed. Joseph interpreted dreams before they became reality. Throughout history, God has always prepared his people before the danger became visible. Why? Because his protection comes before the problem arrives. One of the greatest mistakes a chosen person can make is constantly seeking external validation for what God has already revealed internally. You don't need everyone to agree with what your spirit senses. You don't need public approval to obey God's direction. If your relationship with him is growing, there will be moments when you walk away from situations that look attractive to everyone else. People won't understand. They'll ask why you left such a great opportunity. They'll wonder why you distanced yourself from certain individuals. They'll question why you remain silent instead of joining the crowd. What they don't realize is that your spirit noticed something they couldn't see. God showed you enough to protect your future, even if he didn't reveal every detail. The enemy's greatest weapon has always been deception. He doesn't usually attack with obvious danger. He disguises darkness as opportunity. He wraps manipulation in kindness. He hides selfish motives behind friendly smiles. That's why discernment is such a powerful gift. It allows you to recognize what appearances are trying to conceal. It helps you separate truth from illusion. While others are distracted by charm, status, popularity, or temporary success, your spirit is searching for peace. Because, chosen one, peace is one of God's greatest confirmations. When he is leading you, even difficult paths carry a deep sense of confidence. But when something is outside his will, you often experience confusion, heaviness, or constant inner unrest. Learn to respect that feeling instead of silencing it. However, discernment also requires humility. This gift is not meant to make you feel superior. It isn't permission to judge every person you meet or assume the worst about everyone. Discernment should make you wiser, not harsher. It should increase your compassion, not your pride. Sometimes God reveals people's struggles so you can pray for them, not expose them. Sometimes he shows you someone's weakness so you know how to protect your own peace while still showing grace. The goal is never condemnation. The goal is wisdom. Jesus understood people's hearts, yet he still responded with love while maintaining healthy boundaries. That is the balance every chosen one must learn. So today, stop apologizing for being spiritually aware. Stop calling yourself too sensitive because other people don't understand your gift. Stop doubting the voice that has protected you more times than you can count. Every lesson you've survived has strengthened your discernment. Every storm has refined your spirit. Every prayer has brought you closer to hearing God's guidance. The same God who protected you yesterday is protecting you today, and he will continue leading you tomorrow. Trust the peace he gives. Respect the warnings he places in your heart. Follow his direction even when it doesn't make sense to the people around you, because one day you'll look back again and realize that what felt like an unexplained feeling was actually heaven quietly guiding your steps away from destruction and toward the purpose God prepared for your life long before you ever saw it. Have you ever noticed that some people start acting strangely the moment you walk into the room? You haven't said anything. You haven't accused anyone. You haven't confronted them or exposed their secrets. Yet somehow they suddenly become nervous. They begin over-explaining simple things. They laugh a little too loudly. They avoid eye contact, or they stare at you as if they're trying to figure out what you know. Chosen one, if you've experienced this, don't dismiss it as your imagination. There is a reason certain people become uncomfortable in your presence. It is because your spirit carries a light that naturally exposes what darkness tries to hide. You don't have to investigate people. You don't have to play detective. You don't have to collect evidence or prove anything. Your presence alone becomes a mirror, and people begin seeing themselves more clearly than they expected. That is why some individuals feel uneasy around you, even when you've done absolutely nothing. The truth is, people who are genuine really fear genuine people. Honest hearts are comfortable around honesty. Those who have nothing to hide don't spend their time worrying about being discovered. But someone living behind lies, manipulation, jealousy, or hidden motives constantly fears being exposed. They become suspicious of everyone because they assume everyone thinks the way they do. Then they meet someone like you, someone who isn't trying to compete, someone who isn't playing games, someone who values truth more than appearances. Suddenly, they don't know how to respond. They wonder why you seem calm. They question why their usual tactics don't affect you. They think to themselves, how does this person see through me? Chosen one, it's not because you're reading minds. It's because your spirit has been trained to recognize what your eyes cannot immediately see. Think about how many times you've met someone who seemed perfect on the outside. Everyone admired them, everyone trusted them. They knew exactly what to say and exactly how to make people like them. Yet deep inside, your spirit remained unsettled. You couldn't explain it. You didn't hate them. You weren't jealous of them. You simply couldn't ignore the quiet warning inside your heart. People may have thought you were being overly cautious, but later the truth came out. Their real character was revealed. Their manipulation became obvious. Their hidden intentions surfaced for everyone to see. Suddenly, people who once questioned your judgment started asking, "How did you know?" The answer wasn't that you knew every detail. The answer was that God allowed your spirit to recognize the absence of truth before the evidence became visible. This is why manipulators often struggle around chosen people. Manipulation depends on confusion. It depends on making others question themselves. It depends on creating emotional chaos so people become easier to control. But when someone is guided by God's wisdom instead of emotional pressure, manipulation loses its power. The manipulator expects you to react emotionally, but you remain peaceful. They expect you to chase them, but you quietly step back. They expect you to argue, but you choose silence. They expect you to believe every word they say, but your spirit waits for actions instead of promises. This completely disrupts their strategy because they cannot control someone who is led by discernment instead of desperation. Have you ever wondered why some people suddenly start defending themselves without you even asking a question? Isn't that interesting? You simply ask a normal question and they immediately become defensive. Or perhaps you remain silent and they begin explaining things you never questioned in the first place. Chosen one, guilt has a unique way of revealing itself. When people carry hidden motives, they often expose themselves through their own fear. Your calm presence becomes uncomfortable because it forces them to confront the truth they have been trying to avoid. They assume you know more than you actually do because their own conscience is speaking louder than your words ever could. In many cases, you don't need to expose anyone because eventually people reveal themselves. One thing you must understand is that your gift is not about making people uncomfortable for your own satisfaction. God never gives spiritual discernment so his children can intimidate others or make them feel small. Instead, he gives it to protect your assignment. Every chosen person carries a purpose, and that purpose attracts both genuine supporters and hidden opposition. If you could not recognize unhealthy influences, you would constantly be distracted from your calling. That is why God sharpens your awareness. He doesn't reveal everything so you can become obsessed with other people's flaws. He reveals enough to help you protect your peace, guard your heart, and stay focused on the path He designed for you. Unfortunately, not everyone will celebrate your ability to see beyond appearances. Some people will call you distant because you don't trust too quickly. Others will say you're difficult to understand because you observe before you speak. Some may even accuse you of being arrogant simply because you refuse to participate in fake relationships. Don't let those opinions change who God created you to be. You are not responsible for making deception comfortable. You are responsible for remaining faithful to the wisdom God has placed inside you. Remember, Jesus himself was misunderstood by many people. His ability to see the hearts of others often made religious leaders uncomfortable because they could not hide behind their public image. Truth has always challenged hypocrisy. Another important lesson is learning the power of silence. Many chosen people think they must immediately confront every lie they recognize, but wisdom knows when to speak and when to remain quiet. Sometimes God doesn't want you to expose someone because He is already handling the situation. Sometimes your silence gives people the opportunity to reveal themselves without your involvement. Think about how often people eventually expose their own character through repeated actions. You don't have to force the truth into the light. Truth has a way of rising on its own. Your responsibility is to stay aligned with God, not to become the judge of everyone around you. As your spiritual maturity increases, you'll notice something remarkable. You will spend less time trying to convince people of what you sense and more time simply following God's direction. You won't need endless arguments to prove you're right. You won't waste your energy defending your intuition to those who don't understand it. Instead, you'll quietly move where God leads and peacefully leave where He tells you to leave. That confidence will confuse many people because the world expects constant explanations. But chosen people understand that obedience is more important than approval. When God says move, you move. When He says wait, you wait. When He says let go, you release without bitterness. So if you've been wondering why certain people seem uncomfortable around you, stop taking it personally. Not everyone is reacting to you as a person. Many are reacting to the light you carry. Your presence reminds them of truths they have tried to bury. Your peace challenges their chaos. Your honesty confronts their deception. Your discernment interrupts their plans. Continue walking with humility, because this gift is not about proving that you're special. It is about remaining close enough to God that His wisdom becomes evident in the way you live. Let your life reflect truth without becoming prideful. Let your peace speak louder than arguments. Let your integrity remain stronger than manipulation. And remember this, chosen one, the brightest light never has to announce itself. It simply shines, and everything hidden in the darkness eventually becomes visible. Chosen one, there comes a moment in every spiritual journey when you have to make one life-changing decision. Will you continue doubting the voice God placed inside you, or will you finally trust it? For years, many of you have ignored your intuition because you were afraid of being wrong. You questioned yourself every time your spirit warned you about a person, a place, or a decision. Instead of listening to the quiet voice within, you looked for confirmation from everyone around you. You waited for friends to agree with you. You searched for signs that made sense to your logical mind. You hoped someone else would tell you what you already knew deep inside. But chosen one, God didn't create your discernment to depend on other people's approval. He gave it to guide you personally. The problem is that too many people trust the opinions of strangers more than the whispers of God. They ignore peace because they are chasing popularity. They silence conviction because they fear rejection. But every time you ignore God's guidance, you delay the purpose He prepared for your life. Think about how many blessings you have received simply because you obeyed when no one else understood your decision. There were times when everyone encouraged you to keep holding on, but God quietly told you to let go. There were moments when people called you foolish for walking away from an opportunity that looked perfect on the surface. They couldn't understand why you refused something that promised money, influence, or recognition. Yet your spirit remained unsettled. Deep inside you knew that not every opportunity comes from God. Sometimes the enemy wraps distractions in beautiful packaging. Sometimes what looks like success today becomes tomorrow's greatest regret. That is why discernment is more valuable than appearances. A chosen person does not chase every open door. A chosen person waits for the right door. You have learned through experience that just because something is available doesn't mean it belongs to you. One of the hardest lessons God teaches His chosen ones is that His protection often comes disguised as disappointment. There were prayers you cried over that were never answered the way you expected. At the time you thought God had forgotten you. You wondered why certain relationships ended, why specific plans failed, or why doors suddenly closed without explanation. You questioned heaven because your heart could only see the pain of the present moment. But now, looking back, everything makes sense. Imagine if God had allowed that relationship to continue. Imagine if He had opened the door that later became someone else's disaster. Imagine if He had given you everything you asked for before your character was ready to handle it. What felt like rejection was actually redirection. What looked like loss was actually protection. Every closed door carried hidden mercy that you couldn't recognize until time revealed the truth. This is why you must stop measuring God's faithfulness by immediate results. The world teaches people to trust only what they can see. But faith has always been about trusting what God sees, even when you cannot. Your intuition is often the bridge between your current reality and God's greater perspective. He allows your spirit to sense danger before your eyes recognize it. He creates uneasiness before destruction arrives. He removes your peace before you make the wrong decision. Some people call these coincidences. Chosen ones call them divine guidance. Every warning you receive is evidence that God is still actively leading your steps. The more you walk with Him, the more sensitive your spirit becomes. You begin recognizing His direction not through fear, but through peace. His voice becomes familiar because you have spent time seeking Him instead of constantly chasing the approval of people. There is another truth you need to hear today. Not everyone will understand why you make certain decisions, and that is perfectly okay. Sometimes obedience looks foolish to those who only value logic. Noah looked foolish while building the ark before rain existed. Abraham looked foolish leaving everything familiar without knowing his destination. David looked foolish believing he could defeat a giant with a sling. Yet every one of them trusted God's direction above public opinion. Chosen one, your assignment is not to convince everyone that your intuition is correct. Your assignment is simply to obey. You don't need applause to follow God. You don't need everyone's permission to protect your peace. Some of your greatest victories will happen because you quietly obeyed a voice that no one else could hear. As you continue growing spiritually, you will notice that your decisions become calmer. You will no longer rush because everyone else is rushing. You won't panic because other people are getting ahead. You won't compare your journey to those around you because you understand that God writes every story differently. While others chase temporary success, you will pursue lasting purpose. While others are desperate for quick results, you will remain patient because you trust God's timing. That patience itself becomes a form of spiritual strength. It shows that your confidence no longer depends on what the world thinks about you. It depends on the one who called you. But remember this carefully. Trusting your intuition does not mean acting impulsively. Discernment and impulsiveness are completely different. Impulsive decisions are driven by fear, emotion, or pride. God-given discernment is accompanied by wisdom, prayer, and peace. Before making important decisions, continue seeking God's presence. Continue reading His Word. Continue praying for clarity instead of assuming every feeling comes from Him. As your relationship with God deepens, you will learn to distinguish between temporary emotions and genuine spiritual guidance. His voice never leads you into confusion or unnecessary chaos. Even when His direction is challenging, it carries an unmistakable sense of peace that surpasses human understanding. You must also understand that protecting your peace is not selfish, it is necessary. Many chosen people spend years trying to rescue everyone around them while neglecting the assignment God gave them. They remain in unhealthy environments because they don't want to disappoint others. They tolerate constant disrespect because they confuse patience with permission. They ignore warning signs because they hope people will eventually change. But wisdom teaches you that not every battle is yours to fight. Some people are committed to misunderstanding you. Some relationships exist only for a season. Some doors must remain closed forever. Trusting your intuition means accepting that letting go is sometimes the most faithful act of obedience you can make. God cannot lead you into your next season if you insist on carrying everything from your previous one. As you move forward, there will always be voices competing for your attention. The world will tell you to follow trends. Fear will tell you to stay where it's comfortable. Doubt will remind you of every mistake you've ever made. But above all those voices is the gentle whisper of God saying, "Trust me." That whisper has protected you countless times already. It has guided you through seasons you thought you would never survive. It has brought you out of betrayal, confusion, heartbreak, and disappointment stronger than before. So stop apologizing for listening to the wisdom God has placed inside you. Stop second-guessing every warning He gives your spirit. Walk boldly, but walk humbly. Move confidently, but remain prayerful. Let every decision be rooted in faith instead of fear. Because, chosen one, the same God who awakened your discernment is the same God preparing your future. As long as you continue trusting His voice above the noise of the world, no distraction will permanently derail your purpose. No deception will destroy your destiny, and no obstacle will stop the plan He has already written for your life. Your journey has never depended on luck. It has always depended on God's guidance. So keep trusting, keep praying, keep moving forward, and never forget that the greatest protection you will ever have is staying close enough to God to recognize His voice when He calls you toward the life He created specifically for you.